Thank you, Cheryl.
Take this.
Hello, Ondi Timoner. I am so excited to have you here. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Hi.
Cheryl Crooks here. So we have audience members, you can see the audience members, just to let the audience members know, she can't hear you that well. So when I'm going to have you ask some questions in a little while, I'm going to start, I'm going to ask a couple questions and then I'll call on you and I might have to repeat them to Andy. So anyway, oh my gosh, what an amazing documentary we all just saw. The audience really loved it. Did you hear that? That's a lot of applause
Oh, thank you.
coming. So
Thank
I've been
you.
thinking about you so much leading up to this interview. I was so impressed to read about you having won the Sundance Jury Prize for Dig and We Live in Public, and that you also had completed a film about your father's death with dignity. I call it Last Flight Home, which is kind of a more recent documentary. And what I'm most impressed by and what kind of lives with me is you're just sort of this unflinching documentary maker, this very brave documentary maker, and you're really aren't afraid to engage with like difficult subjects. And the other thing I was thinking about is the fact that this documentary features your sister, Rachel, as the rabbi. And you also did this other film about your family. So there's a lot of questions within this question. I'll try to narrow it down. What are the maybe advantages and challenges when you're doing what I would call an observatory documentary? It's not participatory, you're not in it yourself, and working with family members. And then the other question of course, I think we all want to know is kind of what drew you to the subject, but can you talk about that or those things?
Sure, sure. So, you know, I guess what drew me to the subject is that my sister's an incredible force for justice and equality and talk about courage. She's fearless herself, or she's, as she clarifies, courageous, which means being scared but doing it anyway. And I think we're cut from the same cloth, quite literally. And I have made, many, many films about what I call impossible visionaries, who are sort of it's my polite way of saying people who are kind of impossible, like they take on the impossible and they act impossibly to get to the goal. Oftentimes those people can't really like they can't fall prey to the doubt and ridicule of others around them, or the idea that they have or the vision that they have won't come true. And I've made a lot of films like that. And I do that because I want to inspire audience members to break the rules, to bend the rules, to think outside the box, to do interesting things, to make that crazy idea happen. And then I looked around one day and I was like, wait, why am I not making a film about my sister? I haven't made enough films about women. I want to make more films about impossible women, people who are just, going for it. And so I made one about Amanda Palmer, who's a musician who really redefined the way the music industry works and is also very courageous. And I wanted to make a short film about my sister. So this actually started as Rebel Rabbi, and it was not meant to be a feature film. It was not meant to be about the temple and the church. What happens in documentary a lot is you start with one thing and then you end up with something else if you're following what the film wants to be. There's kind of like this, what does the film want to be? And if I have any spirituality, I'm not a very religious person, but I'm very spiritual when it comes to the work and my role in it, because I understand that my role is to, you know, almost like hunt and gather and grab as much as I can and then hone it into something that it wants to become. It's almost like sculpting, and really listening very carefully. So anyway, it started with Rebel Rabbi. It got too personal for her. She's like, I'm a public figure. You're asking me all these questions about my deeply held shame. This is not going to work. And so we took a step back from it because I was plenty busy with other films. And Last Flight Home happened. Our father decided to do medical aid in dying. And I reacted by setting up cameras, asked him if I said, when you get home from the hospital to start hospice, I really feel like I should film. And I really don't know why. And he said, I instinctively know you're on the right track, which I didn't know even when I was shooting it. I thought I was just documenting to not forget him. Ended up making that film faster than any film I've ever made, and it ended up really being the most important film I've ever made, or probably ever will make. It's sort of like a tablet from beyond. It's not even, it's something that I was just meant to do. And maybe all the years of 30 years of filmmaking led to this one moment of being able to make Last Flight Home. So that has had a huge impact on people all around the world. And my sister didn't want that to come out. So we're in the middle of like a hold on Rebel Rabbi. And my sister's like, it's beautiful, but it was private and should remain sacred and should remain private. So, of course, what do? I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, help me with Rachel. And then she called Rachel and said, Rachel, you really need to like reconsider because I've watched this film every day and it's keeping me alive right now. And so she showed it to her clergy and they were all like, you have to let this film come out. And it ended up being this thing that impacted people as much as anything she's done with her entire career. And she's very front and center in Last Flight Home. And so she changed her whole attitude about documentary at that moment. It was like a crucial turning point. And somewhere in there, like when I was filming Rebel Rabbi, the Reverend came and they did that first meeting you see in the beginning of the film. And then that really started to turn into something as COVID lifted. So she said, the New York Times is circling, like other people are coming around. I really feel, Ondi, like if you want to pursue this story, um, you have the first dibs on it. And I was interested because we grew up in Miami, and as you saw in the film, like both of us, our motivation to fight racism comes from a deep memory of the McDuffie trials. And also my second mother was like this Jamaican woman who, really when my dad had a stroke, took care of us in this way that, I call her every Mother's Day. And I just, the lack of equality and just the idea that these two communities sit on the same land and don't talk to each other, it to me, it felt like a model. It could be a model that would hopefully help other communities around the world. So I decided to keep going and pursue it. And it actually took 5 years to make, way longer than Last Flight Home, and way long, it started well before Last Flight Home and it finished only recently. So yeah, very challenging to work with my sister, but she's worth it.
Really, really amazing lessons in the power of, I think, empathy. There's just one other question I have, and then I'll turn it over to the audience. One thing I was thinking, the climactic moment for me is when you have the congregants of Beth Elohim within the Antioch Baptist Church, and it's the Resurrection Sunday. And you have these people mic'd up, and there's obviously a camera there, and your sister Rachel is talking to the other rabbi, Stephanie, I think it is, and they're, contemplating leaving. There's that moment, and there are other moments where you see people's beliefs being challenged, and they're learning things in the moment, and it's difficult. How did you get? I think I kind of understand from what you just said how you were able to get Rachel's buy-in, but how did you get other people's buy-in to expose these really vulnerable moments?
It comes from a combination. It's actually gotten easier for me because I'm now Ondi Timoner. You know what I mean? So I think about it with young filmmakers and um, how hard it must be for them, because if you Google me, then you can be like, okay, she knows how to make movies. So there's this reputation that allows me a lot of cred going into something. But then after that, it's all about being open, right? And being like, a human, open-hearted, humble human being who's there to learn and really empowering the subjects to feel like they are my Sherpa. That I don't live in, I don't live in Brooklyn. I don't belong to Temple Beth Elohim. I don't belong to Antioch Baptist Church. I don't know what it's like to walk down the street as a Black person. in America. I don't know that because I don't live in black skin. So for me, it was all about spending more time with the black community so that I could learn from them. And also walking in as the rabbi's sister, I was aware that there was could be this inherent feeling of or fear of bias on my part. So I really did everything I could from the start to kind of counteract that and spend time with the Reverend and really have these really long phone calls with him. And that wasn't hard because Rachel is so dedicated to whatever it is she's doing, and she's so busy that she always, even when she appreciated the power of documentary suddenly after Last Flight Home, she still is like, would get edgy of like, I'm trying to do real work and you're doing this thing that I don't know what it is, and you're not doing, and then the movie premiered, and of course everyone in the entire film loves the film, which is also a really hard needle to thread.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, what I'm most proud of is that every single person in that film feels seen and heard and represented by that film, which I can't tell you. It's probably my most challenging film I've ever made because it has that duality and it's complex, right? Like there's like Weeksville and Crown Heights riots and the history of slavery in America and the history of anti-Semitism and like all of this stuff that if you, as a filmmaker, I want to tell the narrative, right? Like I want you to be in those meetings and in that drama and in that verite.
Yeah.
But for you to really appreciate and understand and learn from this film how to do this yourselves, you actually need to know all these other things. And so I have to kind of fit that in and make
Yeah.
sure every word that's spoken is spoken by the right voice to speak it, not the other voice. So it's like it was just a lot. Yeah, the edit was very complicated. Many times where I was, I'm making a film right now that I've been in Europe for 200 days making, and it was actually it has been following a man who has pancreatic cancer, and there's only a certain amount of time we could be in the hospital filming. And it was really being in my hotel room without anybody else around that allowed me to just go through All God's Children 1,000 times till I figured out the right formula.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I can't imagine working on multiple films at once like what you do. It's just so much work. I feel like I'm starting to dominate. So I want to ask the
That's
audience
your
who has
job. You're the
questions.
moderator.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, your question. Go ahead. Yeah.
Curious about distribution. Can we pay to take this to other communities? I'm not from Bellingham, and this would be amazing to show in my community. How do we, tell me about your distribution, please?
Yeah, she's curious about distribution. She's not from Bellingham. She'd like to be able to take this into her community. How can she get a hold of this film and how can it be seen in her community?
So, great question. Right now, we were entertaining different offers that weren't that exciting, holding out, waiting for Netflix, waiting for other streamers to take a look at it. I don't know if you've read the recent news or if you guys are doing panels on it or anything, but the industry is like collapsed between the time this film premiered and even before that a little bit to now. I mean, it is bad out there. And um, so I don't know whether it's the best idea to take it to, one of these offers that we have that are going to be maybe not much better than us doing it ourselves. So I've been waiting to see what the sales agents are going to come up with. And we're reaching that point. Also, I don't know if you guys know, my house burned down in the January fires. So I'm not with you right now, even though I was graciously invited to come because I moved into a new house in the desert, which you can see behind me. So like last week, like a week ago, I got back from Europe and moved in. I lost everything because I wasn't there. If you're curious to read about that, all you have to do is go Ondi fire on Google, and there's a bunch of articles. But it's been really difficult time. So dealing with all of that, I was like, okay, well let's let them sell the movie meanwhile, because it's such obviously a universal story that needs to be seen, that is of interest to so many people in America. Of course it'll get distribution. So I'm not saying it doesn't have distribution. I'm just saying I haven't figured it out yet. and I'm not unfamiliar with self-distribution either. So I don't really want to take that on because, as you said, I'm making a lot of films. I'm actually making two very, very intense films right now. One is for Legendary. It's a documentary about the last Nazis.
Yeah.
And so I was there actually in Budapest where my house burned down. And I just got back from shooting the scripted version, scripted scenes for that documentary. So I have that to edit now and the one about the man with pancreatic cancer. So I don't know if I want to become a distributor, but long story short, go to interloperfilms.com, go to Impact, or I think All God's Children has its own header on the website. You can download a discussion guide that we had everyone participate in from the entire movie. Best practices, how to start this in your own community, and you can request a screening. Please try to request a screening, and then if that doesn't get answered, let me know because I want to know if my office is not answering those things. Please tell me. And I'm just Ondi Timoner on Instagram. So you could just DM me, just write me a message on Instagram. I'll see it for sure. So yeah, that's the best way to do it. But try to request a screening, and there's usually a screening fee for Impact, which we're putting towards Impact and towards a producer to actually take this on and make sure that the film gets seen everywhere. So, if you can't pay, then you can't pay. But if the church or temple or community center can pay something, that's really helpful.
Right. So, gosh, Andy, I'm sorry your house burned down. You have so much going on. Another question from the audience. Go ahead, right here in the front row. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I had a question as a journalist. I just noticed that this film was able to pivot based on so many different developments in the news. And I just wonder, as a filmmaker, how you deal with those kind of things happening, like October the 7th and the deed theft decision, because that seemed so. I just wondered, you talked about kind of letting a film be what it's going to be. And I thought of that in terms of like news developments, how challenging that must have been in terms of this film.
Did you hear any of that, Auntie?
Yeah, I heard all of it.
Okay, good, great.
Great question. And it's a really funny answer because there was one point at which I was like, when Jewish Story Partners, who gave us some funding for the film, were like, oh my God, this film's amazing. But, the war has been happening for 8 months now. So you really need to update it from the perspective of these two communities since you're still editing. So I called them up, even though I told them that we wrapped about 5 times now, and I'm calling them again. And I said, we need to do one more, set of filming. And then then it was just pedal to the metal that no other news can happen, or it's not going to be a feature film anymore. Like, I have no idea how to fit anything else in this film and still have it be like not rude to the audience that you guys need to pee and things like that. Like, I can't make one of those 2.5-hour movies about this topic. So that's the truth of it, is just, there was no way. I was about to wrap the film when October 7th happened. There would be no way to tell this story without October 7th. Yet that is not what the film is totally about. Yet it's something is impacting everybody and is certainly impacting these two groups, and especially the temple. So I needed to do that, and I needed to include that. And then, time goes by, and there's really positive things. Like, there were times when I didn't know if I could finish this film because they were at such odds, and I didn't know if there would be an ending to this film. And then, thanks to October 7th, which is a horrible thing, we were still going when the deed theft law passed. So we were able to document that. So again, it goes back to that thing of feeling like I just have to trust the process, even if it's not at all what I had planned. And that can be really difficult, but I think it yields the most rewarding films when you're dealing with nonfiction. When you're writing a script, and I do both, you can just hit 5 years later, return, and then day or night, whatever you want. it doesn't, for documentary, you have to be there 5 years later. And if you are there 5 years later, chances are it's going to be a great film. If you can tell the story well in the edit, because time, I think, provides the greatest narrative of all.
Yeah, it's great. And it was so wonderful that deed theft became out illegal and it made for such a great resolution at the end too. I really love that at the end.
Yeah, thank
Um,
God for that happening.
how are we on time? I think we're about 3:10. So I'm not, I know that because this is a film festival, we have a lot of films lined up. Do we have any more time, Skylar? Another 5 minutes? Okay. I know there's another question back here. Yeah. In talking about 5 years later, he said he'd be really interested to see 5 years from now, kind of what the story is. Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
That's what the Reverend wants me to do. I generally have like not a rule. I'm not much of a rule person, but I have I don't know what it is, an internal clock, and it ticks, and it's like there's only so much time I have to tell these stories, and there's so many important stories to tell. So, Last Flight Home, the scripted version, is a big priority for me. And getting that, it's a script I've been working on for 10 years and well before, and worked on it with my father. It's just an incredible story. If you haven't seen Last Flight Home, watch it on Paramount Plus or Amazon, and then you'll see what I mean. But anyway, the scripted version will be in the 70s and 80s, and include some of the documentary. And so that and these two feature docs, I have to make those before I can even decide if I want to make any more movies. Like, because as you said, it's very, very hard work. I think I'm due for a memoir. So maybe that might be more of the direction I go in, but we'll see. Maybe a short update is in order for these groups. If they do something extraordinary, I'm sure I'll be their first call. Right now, they're still really enjoying dinners that get bigger and bigger and bigger every month. They're really, really tight, and they're actively organizing, and they've got this program, that program you saw at the beginning in the Boys and Girls School. It's called Dreams, and they have this internship program they've started so that some of these at-risk youth can get real world job opportunities with the temple. So stuff like that, that's just wonderful. And yeah, might warrant an update. We'll see.
Right. It's a great question. Is there anything else? Okay, one last thing. Do you ever have have you ever done any participatory documentaries where you're in the documentary as well? Like the Michael Moore, Morgan Spurlock kind of, or is it intentional that you want to stay out?
I mean, I'm all over Last Flight Home.
Okay.
My father's dying, and I'm right there next to him. So, but again, like that wasn't intentional per se. Since the fire happened, I've been documenting, including myself and my journey back to my house, and um, my brother's journey, who lost his home a mile south of mine, and then other neighbors and community activists and things like that. So I'm in that film too. So when it's appropriate and it's about something that I'm part of, then I'm fine with that. But in terms of me going around being like man on the street, like punditing to the camera and stuff, I don't think that's really my style. I'm more of if it's not about me, I don't need to be in it. I would rather play with how can I tell this story and not break the bubble of the story.
Mhm.
Like, for example, I narrate We Live in Public, my film We Live in Public, which predicts the future of the internet, the
Mhm.
loss of the loss of privacy and intimacy, the rise of social media. All of those things are predicted in We Live in Public. So it's a very revelatory film, and it was very difficult. I tried to get the main subject to narrate that film, but it just didn't work. And then I tried to get his best friend to narrate the film, who's in it, and that didn't work. And finally, like my team ganged up on me and were like, "You have to narrate that film." And I qualified because I'm actually in the film like a little bit, like I pop up here and there because I lived in that bunker in Manhattan at that time in
Oh,
order to make the film. And so I worked for the guy that it's about, Josh Harris, like right out of like when I was in my early 20s. And it was like this, it was called pseudo.com, and it was this first internet television network. And they paid better than anybody. And they had like CNN level studios, yet no one was looking at the internet in the mid 90s. So it was kind of the gig of all gigs. And so I went there to make some money to make my movie Dig, worked for this guy. So because of that, I was able to come in as a narrator.
mhm.
But I think it always should be specific to the project. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. Cheryl, you want to say any parting words?
Yes, I do. I want to tell the audience, Ani, that Ani has another film that we actually considered for the festival, but we only have so much time. It's called The In-Between, and we are trying to set up a special screening at a later date of that film as well. So if you, I won't say exactly enjoyed, but if you enjoyed watching this movie, hopefully we'll make that happen. And just, if you're not on our mailing list, be sure you are, because that's how we'll notify people that we've got the special screening set up. Ani, thank you so much.
you.
I know you've got a lot on your plate
Say
right
one thing
now.
about the in-between. The in-between is like this in that it's another model. I don't know if it's that I turned 50 or what happened, but I am now making sometimes these films that are just meant to be an agent of change for other communities. And so it's about the only hospice for the homeless in the country that provides recuperative care. So in between is INN, meaning an inn that you come and you move into. And it's really surprisingly uplifting, as is Last Flight Home. And that's what I love about it, when I can take your expectations and flip them and make something that seems like it would be desperately sad into something that gives you hope. And we just played Miami International Film Festival with it, and it was probably the most popular of my 4 films that played there. So yeah, people just were like over the moon about it. So it's very short, and you should come if you do a
If we
screening.
make that happen, we hope you can come. We'll be in touch.
Okay, we'll talk about it. I have to
All right,
still
thank
move
you,
in, but we'll
everyone.
talk.
Thank
Thank you, Ani.
Bye,
you.
you guys.
Thank
Thank you
you
all
so
so
much.
much.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your festival. Keep going. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much,
for
Ani.
having me.
Bye-bye.
You have fans in Bellingham.
Thank you. Bye.